He made $50,000 a week by the time he was 15. But the money couldn't save his brother or himself from betrayal that still haunts Harlem. Today, we unravel the true story of Rich Porter, the flashy, young Harlem kingpin whose life looked like a rap verse but ended like a Greek tragedy. What really happened to Rich? And who set him up? If you were making six figures at 16, would you make it out alive? Drop your answer below. And if you knew about Rich before Paid in Full, tell us where you first heard the name. The streets of Harlem weren't just rough, they were magnetic. In the 80s, the crack epidemic hit like a tidal wave. Blocks that once bred jazz legends now produced hustlers. Everybody was chasing money, and if you weren't, you were invisible. This wasn't just survival, it was a marketplace of power. And out of that chaos came a teenage legend named Rich Porter. Harlem turned poverty into pressure and pressure into diamonds. Deals went down in daylight. Shooters ran errands for gold ropes. It was the perfect environment for a young mind wired for hustle. He wasn't just a drug dealer, he was charisma in human form. Born July 26, 1965, Rich came from a family that struggled, but he carried himself like royalty. Clean cuts, big smiles, and fly gear before he could legally drive. He knew how to talk to people, cops, women, old heads. People didn't just like Rich. They trusted him. Charm was his superpower, long before hustling ever was. Rich made illegal money feel legit, like he was just a businessman in the wrong zip code. That ability made him dangerous, because you never see him coming. By the time most kids were stressing homework, Rich Porter was making tens of thousands a week. At just 15, he was already pushing Benzes and walking through Harlem like a prince. He didn't just earn, he glowed. The streets noticed. So did the feds. So did his enemies. He lived fast, but the respect came even faster. But that kind of shine, it attracts shadows. The brighter he burned, the more darkness followed him. In the game, envy's always watching. Together, they were like the Harlem Dream Team, Rich, Alpo, and AZ. Each one had his own style. AZ was the brains, Alpo the wild card, Rich the face. They weren't just getting money, they were rewriting what the hustle looked like. But that kind of chemistry can't last. Too many egos. Too much money. Too many secrets. The game rewards unity, but it thrives on betrayal. As the cash piled up, so did the tension. And when loyalty gets shaky in the streets, someone always pays the price. Unlike most dealers, Rich didn't move with fear. He walked blocks like a local celebrity, dapping people up, smiling at kids, taking care of families. He gave back, paid bills, kept drama low. The hood loved him, and that love made him feel untouchable. Respect kept him safe longer than any gun could. But here's the catch: when you're too loved, too visible, and too rich, you become a target, not just for enemies, but for your own people. Rich was eating fast. Clothes, cars, condos, he had it all by 18. But in the drug game, money doesn't buy peace. It buys paranoia. The more he had, the more he had to protect. He started carrying 2 guns, moving different, watching everyone, even the ones closest. Rich once said, "I don't trust nobody, not even myself." Wealth without trust is a curse in disguise. The money changed how people saw him and how they treated him. Even smiles started to feel like setups. That's the price of being king. January 1989. Rich's 12-year-old brother, Donald Porter, vanished without a trace. Gone from the block like a ghost. It wasn't random. It was a message. The kidnappers wanted $500,000, $500,000 in street cash. The city froze. Even the most ruthless hustlers were stunned. That wasn't a street beef. That was family. This wasn't business. This was cruelty with a price tag. The streets whispered, who would do this to Rich? For the first time, Harlem saw Rich scared. That's how real it got. The phone calls came next, distorted voices demanding the money, threats, deadlines. One call came with a warning, we will send you something. What arrived next was a boy's finger in a brown paper bag. Donald's finger. The city went cold. Rich tried to keep calm. He sold cars, emptied stashes, called in favors, anything to save his baby brother. When the game hits your bloodline, all bets are off. The police were watching, but Rich didn't want them involved. He thought he could handle it himself. That decision changed everything. Rich Porter made a fatal choice. He followed the street code over the family one. No snitching, no police. Handle your business in-house. But this wasn't a rival dealer. This was a brother, a child. And still, Rich stuck to the rules that built his name. His heart broke, but his pride stood firm. Sometimes loyalty becomes the enemy. He gambled on the code and lost more than money. It was a street move, not a brotherly one. And it cost him dearly. Weeks later, Rich Porter was found dead in the Bronx, shot multiple times, dumped in a car like yesterday's trash. It wasn't random. It wasn't a robbery. The rumors exploded. Had a rival done it? Was it connected to his brother? Then came the whispers about someone close, someone inside the circle. The call came from inside the house. It wasn't the streets that killed Rich. It was betrayal. And Harlem would never be the same again. The streets had their suspicions, but nobody wanted to believe it. Not until years later, when Alpo Martinez, once Rich's right-hand man, stood in front of a camera and admitted it. He said the words flat, "I killed Rich," claimed Rich was lying about drug prices, playing games with their business, said it wasn't personal, just business. That wasn't business, that was backstabbing. Alpo shot him multiple times, dumped his body, and kept it moving. It wasn't just murder, it was betrayal of the deepest kind. Harlem went silent. When Alpo's confession hit the streets, it didn't bring closure. It brought rage. The man Harlem once feared was now the man they hated. AZ was devastated. The streets lost hope. If Rich Porter could get done dirty like that, by his own man, then nobody was safe. Trust was gone. Loyalty was dead. Harlem learned that snakes don't hiss, they smile. Even the toughest hustlers felt it. This wasn't just another buy. It was the death of belief in the code they lived by. AZ Faison, the third of the infamous trio, survived an assassination attempt himself. But losing Rich, that left a scar no bullet could touch. Years later, AZ spoke out, calm but cold. He said Rich didn't deserve it, that the love for money had corrupted the game, and that Alpo's ego couldn't handle playing second to a man the streets really loved. It wasn't about money. It was about jealousy. As he stepped out of the game for good after that, his reflection made one thing clear: the hustle kills more than it builds. In 2002, the movie paid in full hit theaters, and for many, it was their first intro to Rich Porter. Mekhi Phifer played the role with charm and heartbreak, but the film still couldn't capture all of it. It showed the betrayal, the tragedy, the glory, but it didn't show everything. It left out the quiet moments, the pain behind the money. Movies end, but real pain doesn't fade with credits. The film turned Rich into a myth, but the truth runs deeper. And the streets still whisper his real story between every verse and every corner. Today, Rich Porter's name is bigger than it ever was when he was alive. Murals in Harlem, shirts with his face. Rappers quote him like a prophet. But that fame is built on loss. The tragedy make him timeless. He didn't get to grow old, raise a family, or leave the game. His legend froze at 25. He became immortal, but at the highest price. People see the Lexus, the jewels, the lifestyle. But behind the image was a boy who just wanted out and never got the chance. Rich's name lives in bars from Cameron to Meek Mill. Rich Porter money, a phrase that means fast cash, clean clothes, and fearless energy. But it also means risk, regret, death. Every time his name is said on a track, it's a tribute and a warning. The culture made him a king, but the game buried him. In hip-hop, he's a symbol of ambition and pain. Rich didn't ask to be a martyr, he just wanted to win. Rich Porter's story is more than just Harlem history. It's a blueprint, a warning, and a reality check for anyone chasing fast money. He had everything: respect, cars, clothes, women, but he didn't have time. The streets gave him riches but stole his peace, and in the end, it was someone close who took him out. The game will love you, then line you up. Rich's life teaches one undeniable truth: loyalty is rare and envy is deadly. Every hustler should ask themselves, are you building something or digging your own grave? Imagine if Rich had walked away. took that money, disappeared, and lived to tell his story. Opened a legit business, mentored the next generation. Maybe Donald would still be alive. Maybe Rich would be a legend you could talk to, not just talk about. But the game doesn't let go easy, and pride doesn't let you pivot. He could have had a future, but the streets kept him frozen in time. And that's the real heartbreak. Not just that he died, but that he almost made it. Almost. That word still echoes through Harlem. Rich Porter wasn't just a street hustler. He was a symbol of ambition, of style, of tragedy. His story didn't play out in textbooks or museums. It lived in whispers, in mixtapes, in the pain of a community that watched one of its brightest lights get taken out by someone who once stood beside him. He didn't die in a blaze of glory. He died in silence, in betrayal, and in heartbreak. But even in death, Rich Porter became immortal. Murals went up. Lyrics carried his name. And a generation of young men saw both the promise and the peril of the fast life through his legacy. He had it all, except time. If you learned something from this video, ask yourself, what does loyalty mean in your world? And how do you protect yourself when the threat isn't your enemy, it's your friend? Because that's what Rich Porter's story teaches us. Not just how to shine, but how dangerous that shine becomes when envy watches from the shadows. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone who thinks they know Rich's story. And if you're into real legends, the ones the streets remember, not the headlines, subscribe to Underworld Icons right now. We bring you the truth behind the myth, the rise, the fall, and the code in between. This is Underworld Icons, and this was Rich Porter.